November. It was a roller coaster of things. I had some meh books, and then I had some really good ones, some new favorites. So it's just a lot to talk about. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nakia. Welcome to my channel. It is that time of the month, you know what I mean, where we are here to discuss everything that I read in the month of November. Yes, my November wrap up. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I have a lot of books to cover, so let's just get into it. I started off November with a book that I was really looking forward to, and after spooky season, I was like, you know what? Let's do something different. And I decided to get into this literary fiction novel that I had on my list. You will know from my TBR video, which is Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Now, as I said, I was really looking forward to this. I had heard so many good things, and the premise just got me. If you don't know, it's about this man who robs a bank, and then he flees the situation, runs into this open house for an apartment, I believe it's an apartment or a house, and takes all the people that are there for the open house hostage. And this is supposed to be about all the people that are there in the hostage situation and how they all have secrets and crazy lives and all that good stuff. As you can probably tell, this was a DNF for me. I couldn't believe it because I just knew I was going to enjoy this book. There was a bank robbery hostage situation. I was like, yes, so there's a little bit of action and mystery involved with this just fiction novel. But I mean, I stopped at page 14 and we had gotten to none of that. It was just this cop who's investigating what happened, talking to a couple of different people, I guess, who were at the open house. I was reading from the perspective of just one lady, and the style of writing in this book is just not my cup of tea. I've talked about this before, but I cannot deal with being in the mind of a character who is very erratic, disordered, restless, just things are just vomited out the mouth. I just can't deal. I said this about I'm thinking of ending things. It's just a thing I cannot deal with. I need order. I need some kind of formatting. I need something I can grab onto. This was jumping all over the place. We had different POVs. The characters I wasn't interested in. I just was like, what happened? And I flipped ahead and scanned through other pages to see where this hostage situation takes place. I did not see it. I finally, I think, flipped closer to the end and I saw a little bit of it there, and that just was not going to work for me. So there was no need for me to go another further. I knew this was not for me. So unfortunately, this was a DNF. I don't even know if I want to read any more Frederick Bachman because, like I said, I just couldn't deal with his writing style. I was interested in A Man Called Ove. I think that's how it's pronounced. And just from this, it makes me not interested. But if you've read it and you think it's way different from this, or you think I might enjoy it, let me know in the comments. But like I said, this was just put me off to a bad start for the month. If you don't know, I try to do my wrap up in the order that I read the books in. So as I said, Anxious People was the first book I started with. I used to go in order from my least favorite book to my most favorite book, but then I decided to mix things up. So hopefully this works for you, keeps you in suspense, and you get to experience it the way I experienced it. So I moved on to another book that I was really looking forward to. This was at the top of my TBR in my top 2021 books, whatever video. I put it up here. Yeah, it was in that video. This author I really wanted to get to. And so I was like, after I put that down, I was like, let's just move on to this book that hopefully will brighten up the month. And I'm talking about Recursion by Blake Crouch. Now, this is one that by the synopsis, I was interested, but I was a little bit confused because I wasn't really sure where the story was going to take us, but I was intrigued. So, in case you don't know, this book is about a cop named Barry and a neuroscientist named Helena. They are living in a world where there's something called false memory syndrome, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It gives people memories of a life they didn't have, and it causes all kind of chaos in the world that this book is set in. I will just go from there. The synopsis said that these two team up and try to figure out a way to end this false memory syndrome situation. So that's all I knew going in. And if you don't follow me on Goodreads, I think that's mainly where I talked about this. I posted my review, but I loved this book. I was torn between reading this and Dark Matter because I know a lot of people seem to prefer Dark Matter. It can only go up for me from here because this already set the tone for me with Blake Crouch. Like I said, I loved it. This is the kind of book and books that I'm looking for. This book made me think and challenge what I think about things. It deals with time travel and it makes you think about what you would do if you could change things. It also deals with the repercussions of that. And I just don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away anything in the book. And this is one of those ones where I had someone leave a comment where they said something like, this is a mind bender or something like that. And yes, that it is. But I love puzzles. These are the kind of books and things that I enjoy. So it took some, like at first I was like, what is going on here? Okay, wait a minute, because dealing with the time travel, if you haven't watched any movies that deal with that, like Doctor Strange or Back to the Future, TV shows like The Flash, it gets complicated because when you go back in time, when you change things, it affects the future and you have to keep track of what's what. This book is told through two POVs, Barry the cop and Helena. And as it said in the synopsis, they do come together, but in a good amount of the book, we're going in between their two perspectives. So you got to keep track of that too. I didn't have a hard time with that. They're really different, so you knew who you were reading from. I preferred Barry's perspective because, again, I love people who are detectives and cops and solving puzzles and mysteries and all that kind of stuff. And in the very beginning, his was the more compelling storyline because he was investigating something, whereas Helena was doing the sciencey stuff that I wasn't as into. But both of them play an important part in this story, and where the story takes them is just like, I kept thinking about it well after I read it. I still think about it now. It was fast-paced after page 70. Because for me, like I said, I was very into Barry's story in the beginning, but Helena's story was just bringing it down a little bit for me. But when it got to page 70, as I like to say, some stuff hit the fan and it was just a page turner from there. I could not put it down. I couldn't wait to go back to it. I kept talking about it with my daughter. Like I said, this is a new favorite. And as I already said, I can't wait to read Dark Matter. If you cannot guess by now, I gave this book 4 stars. It was not perfect because, as I said, it was a little bit slow in the beginning. And at the very end, it got a little bit repetitive for me, kind of like a Groundhog Day thing, to where I was kind of like, all right, if I have to go over this scenario one more time. But it was also things that were changing each time, but it was just getting a little bit repetitive. So I knocked it down 1 star for that. As I said, new favorite. So happy I read this. But this also gave me a hard time for almost the rest of the month because, as some of y'all know, when you read a really great book, then after that, you fall into a slump because nothing else can compare to that book. So, spoiler alert, the next few books I'm going to talk about were not the best for me. So, let's just get into them. Okay. My next one, probably my most disappointing because, like Anxious People, I was trying something new, so I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. But this one is the 3rd book in a series that I have enjoyed, and I have ranted and raved about the first book in this series. If you are new here, I'm talking about Binti, and the book that disappointed me this month was Binti, The Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor. As I said, this is the 3rd book in the Binti series, so of course I can't say too much because I don't want to spoil first and second book. All I can say is that some events happen in the first book where she goes off to a university that's supposed to be like this great university in the galaxy or whatever. This is a science fiction novella. So some things happen in that first book. A lot happens. And then she goes back home in the second book. The second book is called Home. Some events happen in that book, and this one picks up where the second one left off. So I feel like the momentum was going up, all the way up throughout the whole first book. The second book, it kind of stayed like even for me, but it started to come down a little bit. And then this one was just, I put this right now as it's on hold, but it's probably a DNF. It pains me to say. I have stopped on page 28. You see, I still have the bookmark in. I kept trying to pick this up and just nothing was happening for me. It was just so boring. I even have the audiobook. So I was looking forward to reading this along with the audiobook, and even that could not hold my interest. Like I said, I'm just disappointed. I don't know what else to say. Like I said, this one was just very slow. It was just walking and talking and her trying to get somewhere, and it was just taking a long time to get there. Like I said, it just wasn't holding my interest. So I may try to still listen to the audiobook because I have it. I own it now, but I'm going to return this back to the library. It is a library copy, and I can't make any promises. It's probably a DNF. Moving on. My next book was another one that was disappointing, but it was also like Anxious People, where it was a fairly new genre for me and it was something I was trying, so I wasn't really too disappointed, but I really wanted to like this book. And I'm talking about Seasons of Albion by Christopher Warman and Elan Marsh. I hope I'm saying their names right. This is a fantasy novella, and I put a couple of novellas in because I knew I was going to be gone for the holidays and I didn't want to put too much pressure on me to try to get through larger books this month. So again, this was short, and because it's called Seasons of Albion, it takes place over all 4 seasons of the year. So I felt like this was perfect to transition from fall to winter. It is not winter where I live in California, but it's winter time of the year. So I'm trying to get into it. But this was another one where nothing was really happening for me. It pains me. This one I picked up from Kindle Unlimited. So I was happy. I would have paid, but I was happy it was available on Kindle Unlimited. And I stopped at page 25. I am on the first season, which is fall, which is perfect for this time of year. And when I read a little bit of it, the preview to decide to read it, it was giving me the fall vibes. But once we passed that, like I said, it got into a lot of walking and talking and standing around and talking. And like I said, just nothing was happening. So I believe for me, when it comes to the fantasy genre, I need action. I need mystery mixed in. Now, I don't know, maybe something else happens in this book. I am going to say this one is on hold because I may skip ahead to winter and see how I feel about that story. I think it goes fall, winter, spring, summer, I think. So I am going to try to pick it up again and read some more of the stories. But the first story that dealt with fall, and there was this young lady who was, I believe, training to become a witch. And the woman she was learning from, it was just her teaching her some potions, and just like I said, I just wasn't really into it. So that's all I can tell you about that book because I haven't gotten really far and the synopsis doesn't say much either. So don't let me deter you from reading it. It has good reviews, and if you like fantasy, you'll probably like it more than I did. It just was not enough going on for me. So you should still check it out. And as I said, if I pick it up and finish it, I will report back later on. Okay, so those 4 books were all I had on my TBR. So when I knew 3 out of 4 of them didn't go so well, I was like, okay, I need some other books because I have nothing else to read this month. And I decided to pick up a book that I mentioned in my end of year book tag. If you haven't seen it, link it here. But I mentioned it as a book that I could use to transition from fall to winter. And since I mentioned it in that video, I've been wanting to read it because I love the movie Coraline by Neil Gaiman. If you don't know, you're new here, I watch that movie, or I put it on to go to bed 2-3 times a week minimum. But I love that movie. I know so many parts by heart. I just love the way the movie makes me feel. I love the stop motion animation style, the colors, the music, just everything. So I was like, I have to read the book because it's what came first. And I enjoyed it. It brought my month up. Finally, I finished it. First of all, let's give a round of applause for that. But I mean, I pretty much knew I was going to like it because it was almost spot on to the movie. There were a couple of changes. One major one is a character was missing from the book that they put in the movie. It's a character I like, so I was a little bit disappointed in that. Like, I was telling my daughter about it as I was reading it, and both of us have seen Coraline a bunch. And I was telling her that that character hadn't popped up yet. And so I was like, maybe he'll come in later. Then I kept reading and I was like, yeah, no, he's not in here. So I'm curious to know what made them add him into the movie, but he's not in the book. And like I said, I'm not going to spoil it in case you don't know about the book or the movie. But if you've seen the movie and you've read the book, you know who I'm talking about. But in case you don't know, Coraline is the story of a young girl. She finds this little small door in her family's new home, and she goes into this door and finds herself in another world where everything seems to be perfect. And she has another mother, another father who make all her wishes come true. But of course, everything is not roses and there are serious problems going on here. And this other mother wants something more from her than to just love her. So, as I said, I already knew the setup of this story and I knew so much about the movie. I will admit the ending of the movie I generally don't get to because I'm asleep before then. So those parts of the book were a little bit more surprising for me. I did finish it. I went back and finished the movie after I finished the book. Now, it wasn't 5 stars for me because sorry to say, prefer the movie. I know. I wish I had experienced this first before I saw the movie, but I've just seen the movie so many times and I just love visually what they did. So I was seeing a lot of the movie while I was reading the book. I was hearing the voices of the characters from the movie. It wasn't like I was experiencing this for the first time, but I also found that the book was darker than the movie, surprisingly. There were some parts in here that I was like, oh, okay, is this for kids? This was not in the movie either, because the movie was PG, and this, I think, was leaning more towards PG-13. Still PG-ish, but like I said, it had some dark, creepy parts. Of course, it's Neil Gaiman, so this was very imaginative. I enjoyed his writing style, and yeah, it just lost a little bit of steam for me at the end, because once we get to the resolution, I was like, what I thought was the resolution and what I remembered being the resolution in the movie, I was like, why are we still going? I thought that was the end. But after I finished the book and went back and watched the movie till the end, I saw that there was a little bit more that was there that I didn't realize. But like I said, definitely a good book. I recommend it. It's a quick read, short. So this, as I said, helped pick up my reading month, thank God. And I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. We're going to round it up to 4. As I said, it was nothing like spectacular because, like I said, I just knew everything that was coming, unfortunately. And I'd already experienced everything so many times through the movie. So I just, as I said, I'm sorry. I prefer the movie. Moving on. Okay. I'm coming to my last read of the month. I got through a lot of books this month. Not got through all the way, but sifted through a lot of books this month. And before I talk about this last book, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. You know, hope you've enjoyed me and my content. You can check out what else I have to offer on the channel. And I'm almost near 4,000 subscribers, so it really helped me out. If you've watched a couple of my videos, just hit the subscribe button. It doesn't hurt, doesn't cost a thing. Also, if you're enjoying my content and you want to support me, you can buy me a cup of coffee. The link is always down below. So let's get into the last book. Now, this last one, I was combing through my Kindle, trying to figure out what else to read, you know, because I was coming towards the end of the month and I was trying to just pick a short novella to take me home. And this one I saw, and I don't know what made me pick it up, but I was like, let's just take a look at it. And I'm talking about Nocturne by H.B. Diaz. I found out about this book from Steve over on Steve Talks Books and Stuff, his YouTube channel. We're also, you know, BookTube buddies. He mentioned this short novella a couple times. I think he mentioned it in his like favorite horror books video. And I know he did a whole month of reading short horror books, and this was included in that. So I've had it on my list for a little while and I finally picked it up. This was also available on Kindle Unlimited. So I was like, you know what? Not gonna hurt. Why not? Okay, so looking at my Kindle because I wanted to see how many stories there are in here. So there are 12 short stories and I loved a lot of them. I'm looking at my journal notes. My favorites were 6 of them, but I honestly enjoyed all of them except one wasn't really my cup of tea, but I pretty much enjoyed all of them. Now, the first story was a little bit slow for me getting into it because I guess after Coraline and, you know, some of my other books, this is definitely a more cozy, atmospheric read. I watched an interview Steve did with the author, so you can go check that out on his channel. I have his channel linked below, but she talked about being a fan of Gothic horror, and a lot of these stories are Gothic, and I was like, that is why I loved it. I put on my little fireplace, atmospheric video on my TV, curled up. It was just so cozy. So like I said, after I got into the flow of her writing in the first story, it was just like, just flipping pages. I enjoyed so many of the stories. But like I said, let me tell you about some of my favorites. My favorite stories were Insomnia, Wendigo, Pocket Watch, The Ruins, Oranges, and The Echo of Eleanor May. Now, a lot of these stories are very haunting. The author also said that she's a fan of the Victorian era. A lot of these stories take place in the 1800s, which you know I am more recently a fan of. I was just like, oh, there was just so much goodness in this little novella. Her writing style is just so beautiful, poetic. I found myself highlighting so many passages. It was just like, oh, I will definitely be rereading this book. As I said, I picked this up from Kindle Unlimited, but I bought it. And I may get me a hard copy because I just enjoyed it that much. And like I said, I'm looking forward to rereading a lot of the stories. So let me tell you a little bit about the ones that are my favorites. As I said, Insomnia is about a man trying to cure a woman that he loves of her obsession with her work. I can't say much because these are short stories, so I'm just giving you a little snippet. Wendigo is about a woman, and she's out on this, I believe it was an expedition, excursion, whatever, with her professor and some students, and something goes wrong, and she's trying to figure out if her professor is insane or a monster. Pocket Watch is about grief and a man who's dealing with his father aging and possibly dying. And the pocket watch is something that belonged to his father, and how that all fits into this story. You'll have to read it and find out. The Ruins is about a group who are on an expedition, and one man goes off into a cave and stumbles upon something monstrous. And then he witnesses something, and he has to try to figure out, is he a man or a monster? Like I said, all these stories leave you thinking and wondering about humanity and yourself and all kind of things. Oranges was a story, of course, close to my heart because it deals with a mom and her grief and guilt. And that's all I'm going to say, because again, I don't want to spoil things. And my last favorite story, which was the closer of the book. It was the longest story because when I flipped to it and I saw I had like 25 minutes to read, I was like, 25 minutes? Because all the rest of the stories were like 5 minutes. There's even one that's, I think she said 100 words. It's like a minute, because in my Kindle, I have it set so I can see how much time I have to read. And so this one, like I said, was a little bit longer, but I just loved the writing. This one was definitely Gothic, Victorian era. It was just so beautifully written, and it takes place in the winter time. She talks about the snow and the cold. It is perfect for this time of year. But this one is about a psychiatrist who is looking into a case involving one of their patients. And if you don't know, you're new here, I love horror and thriller books that have to do with therapists, psychiatrists, all of that. So when I saw that, I was like, I mean, I get too excited, calm down. But it delivered. And all of these stories deal with the supernatural, which is another thing that the author loves to write about. Right up my alley. Just checks all around. Steve, thank you for talking about this book, because I would have never read it. And this is a new favorite horror book of mine. I will say this again. This type of horror is what I am looking for. There was no pedophilia, no incest, no sexual assault, none of the things that I don't like to read about. And it reminded me that I am a horror fan. I am a horror lover, because I've read so many books that are just disturbing to me and make me doubt my love of the horror genre when it comes to books. I already know how I feel about movies. I've been into them for a long time. But horror books are newer to me. So as I said, I was starting to be like, I don't know if the horror book genre is for me. But like I said, this book restored my faith, and I am a new fan of hers. But when I watched the interview that Steve did with her, she's a mom, and she said that once she had her child, she didn't want to write about body horror and stuff. Now, there is body horror present in the book, but it's not a ton. But I enjoyed the body horror that was there. And I was like, I should have known that was why I enjoyed it so much, because I think that is a big reason why I am the way I am with my reading. I'm a mom also, if you didn't know. And so there's a lot of things I just don't like to read about, and it does change you as a reader, and it changed her as a writer. It changed me as a viewer, what I decide to consume. And so all of that makes a difference. But the novella, I believe, is like 55, 57 pages. I'll put it up here on the screen. Most of you will read it in one sitting. I almost did. I could have, but I stopped to go do some shopping and stuff for getting ready to put up our Christmas decorations. So I did not read it all in one sitting, but like I said, I easily could have. When I was reading it, I didn't want to put it down. So clearly, I highly recommend it. And I gave this book 4.5 stars. I think I'm going to round it up to 5. Ooh. This also reminded me of a adult scary stories to tell in the dark book, where some of those stories deal with grief and people being haunted, and like, you know, there were twists to some of these stories that I didn't see coming, or I saw it coming right before it happened. Like, this is what I wanted in Home Before Dark. I'm sorry for those of you who love Home Before Dark, but this is what I was looking for. But anyway, I could go on and on about this book forever. I am now a fan of this author. I'm following her on Amazon. I will follow her on Goodreads so I can be there for whatever she writes next. Her next Gothic horror. I will be waiting. So yes, that is my month of November reading wrap up. I will say, because I had 2 new favorites, it was a good month. I think most of the time when you experience that, it's worth everything else you went through. For Nocturne and Recursion, it was a great month. Before I got to Nocturne, I was like, oh, Persian just ruined me for everything else. But as I said, it clearly just makes a difference with the writing. I mean, like I said, Coraline I enjoyed, but I already knew everything about that. So it wasn't really anything new for me. But so yeah, let me know in the comments what your favorite book was that you read in November, or if you had any surprises like I did. Also, you know, I love to chat with you about the books that I've read. Feel free to let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you disagree with me, if you agree with me. Let's have a discussion. I'm always here for it. And if you don't have anything to say or any of those comments, you can always just leave me an emoji. And let's see, let's go with, because of the book Nocturne, let's go with a moon or stars emoji. So there you go. And I think that's all I have for you, ladies and gentlemen. So until next time, snuggle up in your hideaway with a good book, unplug as much as possible, be kind to all kind, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.